So once you've opened Revit, you'll get to this home page where you can see that you will have models that you can open any existing model. Then you can create any new model. Then families, you can open an existing family or create a new family. So families are basically elements that you create that you can import into your project that you don't have to do repetitive work. Meaning, if you look at this turning arrow here, I've created a 2D turning arrow, so I can at any point just pull this into my Revit file and reuse it. So you can just imagine what you can all create. You can create your own doors, windows. There's a bunch of stuff that you can create. Then you can see there's a file that says recent. So this is any project or any family that you've actually opened within the last week or so. Then Autodesk Projects is the area where you can access online or actually files within the cloud. So if you work in the engineering or architectural field, you'll actually have a BIM coordinator that sets up the cloud for you, and they then give you access to this cloud where you then collaborate with the architect or engineer. So you can have a look here at these icons. So here it says RFA, so that's a Revit family. This little icon here says or displays that it's actually a cloud model. And then if you go down here, this one says RVT, which is a Revit model. So just to distinguish between the different categories that you get. So for this exercise, we're just going to go new. Then you'll see you can scroll down here and open a specific template to your field. So there's an architectural, structural, mechanical, etc. So for this exercise, we're just going to open a structural template. You will also see when you create this, don't say project template, keep it on project. So then we just click OK. Now that this has opened, I'm going to explain to you the ribbons and the different tabs that you get. So you'll see if you go to the top here, you have the architecture tab, and within this tab you have walls, doors, windows, and you can actually go on and look and see what all you can do within the architect tab. Then if you go to structure, you'll see there's a few different things here, especially when it gets to foundations and beams and stuff like that. So you'll see you also have a wall, and you have a wall in the architecture tab. But this wall is a structural wall and not a architectural wall. We'll get into this a bit later in more detail. Then you can see in the structure tab, you can also do reinforcing. And as you go on, there's a lot of different stuff that you can do. But you can also see here, you can create a structural grid. And if you go to architect, there's also a grid that you can create, and also level. Same with the structure. You can also create a level. You can only generate levels in a section or elevation. This is why it's grayed out. Then if you go to steel, it's actually sort of part of the structure tab. Here you can do connections and plates and bolts, and you can notch your steel elements, but we can get into detail later. Then precast, myself, I don't use a lot of precast elements, but you can have a look here. Then systems, this is for more for mechanical and electrical and plumbing and those type of things. You can definitely have a look at this in your own time. Then once you go to insert, you'll see here that you can link different types of entities. So you can link a Revit file, you can link a IFC, a CAD, a topography, and as you go on, you can actually see, you can also link PDFs and images. So the difference between, you can see there's import here and link here. So import is, once you import this file, it's not linked to the file at that specific point. So say for instance, I link in a AutoCAD file and I make changes to that AutoCAD file and I save that AutoCAD file again. I can come back here and I can say reload that specific link, and then it updates this link that you've added. But if you import the CAD, you can't do that. You have to actually delete the CAD file and re-import that CAD file if you had made any changes. Then here you can also load in families. That's where I've mentioned earlier, where you create your own 2D and 3D elements, so you don't have to do repetitive work for typical details. Then we can go to annotate. So annotate is where you do your dimensioning, your elevations, your coordinates, and some filled regions. So a filled region is where you actually draw in two-dimensional area or two-dimensional frames. Then as we go on here, you can generate a text. You can tag by category. What that means is, if you have a steel beam, for instance, and it's, let's say, an IPE 200, you can click on this and you can literally click on that beam and it will then give you the size of that beam. You can also modify your tags, which is quite cool. And then you can see there's different types of tags that you can do. You can do your thread numbers, your rebar, and then here's some duct and pipe legends. I don't really use this. And this area you can also have a look at. Then analyze. This is more when it gets to designs of structures. You can see structural. Then here it's more maybe architectural. I don't really use from this area to the right hand side. I do use the robot though, but you have a lot of different analysis options that you can have a look at. Then massing and site. Here's where you can do your own topo solid surfaces. That means you can actually import a CAD file from Civil 3D and you can generate the topo solid from that. You can see a create from import from that specific contours. And then you can insert some parking areas. You can do your property line. Then if we go to collaborate, you'll see this is more when you're working on the cloud, is where you can work in work sets. So to better explain this, a work set is, how I see it, it's the same thing as you would work in AutoCAD where you create a layer. So you work on different layers. You'll see if I click on this, you just say okay. Then it's going to give us a pop-up here. Then these are two work sets that's automatically created by Revit. Then you can create your own one here. Let's, for instance, just call this walls. Say okay. And then say okay again. And just, yes, I want it to be the active work set. So you'll see here at the bottom, you have 3 work sets. I refer to it as the same type of layers that you get in AutoCAD. Okay. Then once you go on here, this is more for the cloud. Same with this, the copy and monitor, the coordinate rather, is when you actually link in a architectural model or an engineering model, and you can copy and monitor that link. You say select link and you click on that link, then you can click on the element and bring it into your model. instead of actually redrawing it. Okay, and then if you go to view, there's a lot of stuff going on here. We can get into more detail in this, but you have some view templates. So view template is something that you set up for, let's say you have 4 different layouts, but you want them to display the same scales and same graphics. You set up a template so that you don't have to actually set up a template for each individual layout. But I'll show you in later videos how a template works. Then if we go on here, the presentation area, it's more for the architectural areas. Then you can click on this for the default 3D view. You have your section indicator, a callout. Callout is basically where you create a detail of a specific, let's call it foundation or something. You want to give more detail and you just do a callout. Then plan views, here's where you can create different plan views. And then you can do an elevation, but there's already, you can see here 4 elevations that's been set up for you by Revit. You have the north here, east, south, and west. Then drafting view is a powerful tool that I use a lot. That is for 2D drafting. So you can actually take your AutoCAD 2D typical details and you can import it into the Revit and make it a Revit file and then save it as a Revit file drafting view, and then you can actually use that in future. Then duplicate view is where you just want to duplicate a specific, let's say, plan view. You can also right click and say duplicate view and duplicate. So if you say duplicate, it will just duplicate that layout without any dimensioning or text that you've added. But if you say duplicate with detailing, that will then add your text and your dimensioning. Then schedules, that's something that you would use for your, let's call it door schedules or window schedules, but it's also something you need to set up also for pending schedules. Then a scope box, that's just when you work in 3D, you use a scope box. Then sheets, you can create your own sheets. That is when you want to print your drawings, you put it on a specific sheet. I do have a video on that. Then revision clouds. So there's actually a lot going on here, but this is just to give you some basic background. Then manage. Here you manage your project properties and information and standards that you can work through here. You can just look at all the different tabs. Then manage links, I do use a lot. This is where you link a Revit file or CAD files. So this is where it will store your file and you can say you want to unlink it or remove it or reload it or anything like that. Then you have Dynamo. You can also use Dynamo. You can look at some YouTube videos. It's a powerful tool. Then add-ins are just add-ins that Revit has for different apps that you can use. I don't use a lot of add-ins. Then Procon is just a design program that is linked to my Revit, but this is not preset, so you won't see this in yours. Same with the M Labs, is something that I've actually downloaded, and same with the Pi Revit that I've just downloaded. I just use these. I don't use all of these areas. I just use the print sheets one. So you can also look at a few videos on YouTube with regards to this. And then the modify tab is just where you can copy and cut stuff and trim and extend all your different elements. But yeah, this is just an overview of these tabs and ribbons. I'll see you in the next video.